From the city of brotherly love, this is Shark Bite Biz with David Strausser.
You just arrived to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your glamorous, sometimes wannabe host, David Strausser, and this is your place to grow a business during complete global chaos. Getting in the holiday spirit here, wearing my ugly Christmas sweater. Philadelphia Eagles, got glow-up lights, all that fun stuff. Probably should turn the lights on, right? There you go. There we go. All lit up now. But anyways, today we'll be talking about international business culture. First, remember, please download the Shark Bite Biz app right on the Android Google Play Store. Just search Shark Bite Biz. It's 3 words. You'll see our logo. You can get every single episode of the show there, both audio, video formats, snippets, everything is right there in the app. So please make sure you go out there, give it a 5-star review, and download it today. Let's get back to today's show. The pandemic really pushed us off the digital transformation cliff. I mean, we've beat that horse a million times. We've talked about that so many times in this show, and we've kind of gotten past that because everybody knows that by now. But one aspect of that is that we're working more globally than ever. Your coworkers may be halfway around the world. And with the beauty of this little thingamajig called the internet, your clients are probably, halfway around the world as well. So we're going to be chatting about the differences in business, culturally speaking, between working in different countries, if you're an American working in Asia, things like that, and those different experiences and some, tips to really help you succeed. So who do we have today? And I am going to apologize right out of the gate because I'm probably going to chop this name up pretty bad. But we have Levent Yildizgoren, okay? And Levent Yildizgoren was born in Turkey, but has spent the last quarter of a century running a highly successful professional localization service based in the UK. His decades of learning about the pitfalls and prizes the export market presents are shared in his book through his lingo model. He has helped companies do business in more than 100 different languages. So, hey, without any further delay or having to stare at this awesome, beautiful, ugly Christmas sweatshirt, let's bring Levent right on in here.
Business strategy.
Levent, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
Great to be here, David. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So we always have a tradition on the show. We ask everybody the same exact question right out of the gate, okay? I want to hear in your own words. And I know that sometimes this is hard to answer. It's like a can of worms for many people. But what's your experience? What's your background? What do you do for a living? How did you get there? In a nutshell, tell us what makes Levent.
Okay, no, thanks for asking that question, David. Now, when I think about it, to summarize, what I do is I enable businesses to connect with their international audiences, because we all know how important it is selling to other countries. Large brands do it because they are large, and that's how they become global. Apple gets 58% of their revenue from outside the UK, outside the USA. Sorry, I said UK almost because, as you know, I'm based in the UK.
What part of the UK are you from?
Good question. Well, we are in Essex. So it's not far from London, almost like a suburb of London. So in other words, I could go to central London in like 30 minutes by train, quicker than most Londoners do, because it probably take them an hour to get to the center of London. So it's not suburbs of London, yeah. Now, my background is very much based on that. Languages, translations, making my customers' messages count. I have been running a translation company with my wife for the last 30 years. This is our 30th year as it happens. And previously, I was in print. And you might say, well, print translations, I didn't realize the correlation until recently. I loved print. Well, print is also communication in a different medium, different media. But yeah, I love print. And of course, I love what I do because I've been doing it for the last 30 years. Life is too short to do something that you don't enjoy or you don't like. And so that's my motto.
With the print, like you're talking about printed items, right?
Yes, very much.
One thing I've noticed, and I'm bilingual, and it's funny. Most of my life, I would have just say, yeah, I'm bilingual, but it's because I lived in Mexico or I lived in San Diego or LA. And when you just say you're bilingual out there, people are like, bilingual. Oh, okay. So you speak Spanish and English, that's what bilingual means. And now that I'm on the East Coast living out of Philadelphia, when people ask you, like, oh, do you speak more languages? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm bilingual. And they're like, okay, bilingual in what?
Good question.
You're right. I had to start explaining to people what I'm bilingual in. But my point about this is one thing that I noticed, okay, there may be a Spanish book that is translated into English, or maybe it's an English book that's translated into Spanish, and they do literal translations, okay? They don't do the context of the translation because, as you know, in English, we'll use English as the main example because both you and I speak English. You can say a phrase, okay? Like think what the F, okay? I'm not going to say the word, but what the F, WTF, okay? Depending the context in which you say that can mean 30 different things. You know what I mean? And that's where they don't translate things a lot properly. One of the things I discovered on my language journey is that there's a lot of people that speak English, speak Spanish, Chinese, whatever it may be, okay? But yes, they are technically fluent. They know every word in the alphabet, but they don't understand it. They don't comprehend it. They don't have a true comprehension of the street level language. And to me, that's a challenge, which is ironic because I learned Spanish living in the streets of Mexico in a poor Tijuana ghetto. So I learned the most basic versions of Spanish and was able to build on top of that to have more proper Spanish today. Whereas usually, most people, they learn in reverse. They learn the formal version of the language, and then they get, dumbed down, I guess you could, to the street talk later on.
Well, yours has probably made it easier for you because by learning the language, colloquial language, where you communicate with the locals, live the life, order your food and ask for directions and interact with the local population, it makes you interested in the language. This is one of the things that we find, that people don't see much necessity to learn another language. And whereas you started it from the ground level up, and you can always polish your grammar, you can always learn the intricacies of you can always increase your vocabulary. But the way you started, I think, is the ideal way to go, because you're connected to that audience, connected to the language.
I was immersed in a place where, so I lived in Tijuana, and in Tijuana, not to get into geopolitical politics in the United States, Mexico, but that's one of the big hubs where they deport people to. So they could be a lot of people that cross the border without documents, or they're living up here on expired documents. Okay. When they get deported, a lot of times they'll get deported through Tijuana, and that gives Tijuana a very, very high percentage of people that speak English or understand English a little bit more. But I was living in one of the neighborhoods that were so rough that there wasn't even many of those people living in that community. So like I really, they knew a couple words here or there from TV, but I pretty much had to learn the language. because I was engulfed into it. It was an amazing experience. It was very difficult. A lot of times, I remember with my ex-wife, for example, she was sending me to the store once to buy tortillas. And down there they buy, they sell the tortillas freshly made at the tortilleria. Every neighborhood has their own tortilla making place. And at that time, it was like 3-4 pesos for a kilo of tortillas. And at this point, my Spanish was getting a little bit better. So I go to the store and she was saying 3 or 4. I thought she meant 3 or 4 kilos. So I bought 3 kilos and they were like, I think they were, let's just say they were 3 pesos each. So they were like 9 pesos. I'm like, only 9 pesos. That's like $1. Okay. Cause it was 9 pesos to $1 back then. I'm like, give me 4. So we'll get 4. And so I bought another one and, ended up with, a thing like this, freshly made tortillas. I come back to the house and they're like, what the heck did you do? We told you to buy 1 and it would be 3 or 4 pesos, not buy 3 or 4. So it was one of those things where I spoke language, but I didn't comprehend the language. I don't know. It's just a funny story I look back to when I was growing up.
So I was in print for like 10, 15 years and then moved on to we had an opportunity to develop the business that my wife already started. And she had a boutique translation company. And then we had an opportunity to grow the company. So without any hesitation, I signed, gave in my notice, resigned my position and then joined her. So that was 30 years ago.
You joined your wife's company. Were you nervous at all?
Well, at the time, we were more excited because we were taking a major step. And I always wanted to run my own company, be involved in my own future. And my wife really knew that and appreciated that. So, I was the main breadwinner. So when I resigned and joined the company, so that was a major decision. And thinking about it now, we didn't run any Excel sheets. We didn't run any risk analysis. It was like a gut feeling. And thinking about it, oh my God, what have we done? Because we had 2 small children. We moved to the Essex area then, and there was a recession in the UK. So, would I do the same thing now? Probably not. But it was a gut feeling decision, and it worked really well.
Hey, sometimes the gut feelings, like they could be totally wrong. But if you have a strong gut feeling that something's telling you that it is right, I'm a strong believer. Don't fight those strong gut feelings because sometimes, the magic of this world, whether it's just faith, whatever you want to chalk it up to, something's pulling you in that direction. Go ahead and do it. Now, if it's for a lottery ticket, fight it off. That's probably addiction. But if it's something like that with business, it's probably good. Now, my concern would be you went into this business and you're working with your wife. So that means that you have no separation, from your spouse at all. You're living with her, you're working with her. So work problems become home problems, home problems become work problems. How difficult was that for you? What were you nervous about that aspect of it?
Because we haven't done it before. We didn't know what was around the corner. So we had no idea. We had no expectations in that sense. But our biggest challenge and our biggest target was to make it work because we had 2 small children, house mortgage to pay. And as I said, there was like recession at the time. And also we didn't want to, we said, what could happen in the worst case? Say it didn't work. And I said, look, at the time we were still young. I said, well, what can happen? I can go back to my work or find another job. So we are still young enough to do something about it. But to be honest, we didn't know what was expecting us. Now, you have a very good point. Now, working and living in the same place, working long hours, because when you start the business, the hours are never regular. And if anybody is thinking about, starting a business for regular hours, yes, so you work almost, and we had a large project, so that means, we often talk about this with my wife. We would work till small hours in the morning, and then because we would have to do the school run, we wouldn't go back upstairs to sleep. We would sleep down on the sofa, leave the window open so that we would have some fresh air to wake us up. So that's going on like 5-6 months, just so that we could finish the project and also, make things work. And gradually, as we felt what's the word, like secure, and realized that actually this is working. And then we started taking precautions, such as one of us will do the school run. But we did, yes, yeah. But not we worked in the same office, but we moved from home to a separate office, and so yeah. So we started taking time off, spending more time with children. But the initial years were not easy.
I mean, how does that work? Okay, so I guess you could say technically it's both you and your wife's company, but your wife started it. I mean, when you start talking about, let's just say a few years down the road, okay, after you were in 5, 6, 7 years, you have some employees now, I imagine, right? So how does that work as far as like you want to go on vacation, okay? You and your wife run the business, you two are the owners of the business, and it's usually like, hey, if I'm going out on vacation, my boss is there to back up my team in case they would need him, okay? And make those executive decisions for me, okay? With you both being out, I assume you took vacations at the same time. How did you work around those types of things, Because I think that's something that people struggle with.
No, that's a very good question. Now, I won't say day one, because, from day one, we wanted to make it work. So we were working so hard. But after like 6 months or maybe a year, we started building a team, because neither of us wanted to do all the work ourselves. We wanted to grow the company, build a team around us that we could rely on, and also we could help them develop as well, so that there's a team in place. And we always wanted that, and I'm pleased to say that we put in place a team from the first year. So whenever we left, and we never wanted to micromanage, so we trusted our colleagues. I'm pleased to say that we employed people, we found people, like-minded people, so that we had the same core values. And with this in play, with this in mind, when we went away for 2 weeks, we knew that company was in safe hands. And also we were approachable, and we were also reachable. So that, you know how it is. You never switch off that phone because it's at times when there was no mobile phones, we would give him like the telephone numbers of the place we're going, telephone numbers of the nearest relative. So also we would also do check-ins. If there was a large project going on, we would do the check-in. But it's a very important question. And these are the times that, I think most entrepreneurs will say, I'm glad I have a great team in place, because I can take time off, or it could be a time off, it could be attend a child, attend a relative in hospital, or whatever that may be. So having a team in place made all the difference.
Right. Understood. So I guess let's take a pivot here. Let's start talking about some of the international business etiquette while we have you, on this interview, because a lot of people, they're listening in and they love hearing about your business, but they'd also love to learn some of the stuff that all your secrets, right? So, what are some of the top three cultural misunderstandings that people need to avoid when doing business internationally?
It's a very good question. And international aspect is something that is in our daily lives. So it's not like nobody can, unless they live in a very remote area of a country, they are, they are part of an international trade or international relations. The phone we use, the fridge we have in the home, the car we drive, or the parts of the car we drive comes from. So the international aspect is part of our lives. So one thing that I come across, the biggest mistake, or I wouldn't say mistake because people do it unintentionally, the biggest awareness that people need to develop is that every culture is different and there's no right or wrong when it comes to cultures. And so that is the biggest, I hear from people saying that I went to this country, they are so rude. Okay, tell me a bit more. What do you mean by rude? Well, you know what? You go to a coffee shop or a bar and they say, what do you want? That's so rude. Okay, it's not what we are used to maybe in the UK or in the USA. The service and the people who serve you will have, act within that cultural frame and cultural understanding. But in another country, when people say to you, what do you want? They're not being rude to you. This is just simply an etiquette that, okay, I want to ask you, what is it that you want? Now, there are many ways of saying this. So assuming that what you'll receive or what the attitudes or behavior is going to be the same as your home country, I think that is the biggest awareness that people have to develop. And the other thing is, this is always the case with business people, because they go to another country, for a short period of time to develop relations or sell something or do a market research. And again, the cultural aspect of it, politics. In some countries, politics are spoken very openly. In some countries, don't. Some countries, people say, which party did you vote for? That can be just a normal question. But in some countries, this is a taboo. Nobody asks themselves, each other, which party they are voting for. And also some countries, politics can be very a point of passion. So people can be very passionate about politics. So avoiding talking about politics, football, and lastly, religion is so important because, again, it's all about cultural values, the thought process, and depending on the country, those three things can be at the top of the agenda, or it could be at the bottom of the agenda. Talking about football is probably don't mean anything, but in some countries, people are so passionate, saying something wrong for their football team. I know brothers kind of falling out because of they support different teams. So these are the things. I mean, you may say, David, okay, how will you know every single culture that you're getting interaction with? My suggestion is that, based on working with different cultures for the last 30 years, is having a tolerance built so that having a body language that is open and also pays attention to the other party. For instance, in some cultures, age is very important. So when a delegation walk into a room, chances are, if it's a high context culture, chances are the eldest person walking in first will be the top person in the room, and they'll never leave last. They'll always leave the room first. And nobody in the lower hierarchy will dare to leave the room before they leave. So reading those body languages and not assuming that, for instance, when I sit down and talking and I just do my button and, let's talk business now. Now this could be perfectly normal to you because, USA is when it comes to direct communication, USA, UK is very similar, very casual. And you say, hey, David. Yeah. But in some cultures, doing this before a meeting could come as a sign of aggression. So what is going on? Are you here to fight or, so reading the body language, reading the room, and also not assuming that what is funny for me, what is acceptable for me, will be also acceptable for the other party. So really coming down to the basics, it is very simple. Awareness can be built, things you can spot it, as long as person is willing to take those signals, understand the other party's reactions. And if they're not laughing, well, maybe I didn't say something funny. So avoiding humor is very important. So, just to summarize, cultural awareness, and before the other party, avoiding hot topics such as religion, politics, football is also very important.
Right. No, totally agree. I mean, some of the things that I've learned, for example, when doing business in Mexico or Latin America, America, we like instant gratification. We like doing things fast. Let's get to the punchline. Let's work out a deal. Let's close a deal. And yeah, sometimes it takes a long time to close a deal. I mean, look, Elon Musk and Twitter, that took a long time for that deal to close because it was very large and complex. But for the most part, deals or buying things, selling things, it's usually a pretty fast sales cycle. Down in Latin America, I discovered that, selling like that is a big turnoff. It makes it looks like you're desperate for sales, and it's not, you're not going to be successful selling that way, that it's a much larger, much longer sales cycle. Now, when I was working with Asian companies doing semiconductor sales, one of the things I noticed about those companies is that they're very hierarchy, like a hierarchy, kind of like what you were saying about the age group, to where everything's got to run its way up the chain before it runs its way back down to the chain and you have your approval. It's very, very crazy. I think some of those differences, I always hate to see when you have an American, and you could have this from any country. I'm just using America as an example because I live here, but and they expect it to be the same way in the country that they're visiting as it is in the US. And I think a lot of people do that here too. They're coming from a different country and they want it to be the same way as their home country as they do when they visit the US. I mean, it's like, come on. I mean, you can have some middle ground if you're doing business, but I mean, when you're visiting another country, I mean, you're pretty much you're agreeing to play by their rules. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess one of the last topics, as we are coming up on our time, the end of the show, is how to build trust with different cultures. I think that's an important topic, and I'd really love to hear how you build trust. You're working with a company in Mexico, or maybe you're working with a Korean company or a Turkish company. How can you build trust with those companies being a foreigner to them? That was always one of my biggest struggles when I was young.
Very good question, because we buy on emotions, and people need to connect with a brand or product emotionally before they actually make that purchase. Apple does it so well. Airbnb does it so well. Most of the global brands, Uber does it so well. Most of the global brands do it so well. And when you look at their behavior, why they are so successful and others are not, I think it's very simple actually, but it comes down to what we call localization. What we mean by localization is that getting their message, language, cultural aspects catered for that country. So, for instance, if you're using Airbnb in South Korea, you feel that it's a South Korean company. You wouldn't think that, well, there's an American company trying to do business in South Korea. Why? Because they make keeping the corporate style consistent, because Airbnb can't appear different in every country. So they keep the corporate style consistent, but all messages, language is used that will reflect the cultural expectations of the target audience. That's why somebody in South Korea, somebody in Turkey, somebody in Germany uses Airbnb as comfortable as anyone in the States. And the biggest success of these global brands is in making things localized for the target country. For instance, Kentucky Fried Chicken, now is known as KFC. They sell afternoon tea, which is a scone with the cream and the jam, in China. They sell afternoon tea in China, in Shanghai. Whereas in the UK, it's unheard of. They sell one thing, that's the chicken and other stuff. So localizing things for the target audience. And when somebody gets a message in their own language, they are more likely to understand it, get it, and get connected. Not just understanding, because, come on, everybody, almost, biggest part of the internet population speaks English. But getting a message is different than just speaking the language. People get the message in their native language 4 times easier, and it helps them to connect with that product.
And that kind of goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier, where understanding and comprehending the language are 2 different things. I feel like there's some overlap with what you're saying.
Absolutely. So this is their success. And companies who goes like, well, it's good enough for my customers in my home country, it'll be good enough for anyone. So that kind of approach doesn't work, and it may work, but they are missing a big opportunity by not localizing products and messages and trying to reach customers in their native language. They are missing a big opportunity by not doing this.
No, totally agree with you. Levant, hey, this has been amazing. You gave us a lot of good information. I hope everybody out there loved.
It's been total pleasure.
Can you please, you've got a book out there, you have a podcast out there. Tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your book. Tell us where we can find out more about your business as well.
Thank you, David. Well, my podcast is called Thrive in Global Markets, and it's available in most platforms such as your podcast. It's available in Apple Podcasts, Google, and Spotify. So if anyone searches for Thrive in Global Markets, they'll find it. The book is, I love my book because I've been trying to write this since 2018. So pandemic, the COVID kind of provide me the platform to do that. I said, I'm not going to let this COVID, run me down. I said, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. And I said, okay, book is, and having a good team in place also paid dividends for me, because my colleagues stepped up while I stepped back to write my book. Now, I'll provide you the link, because I'm very pleased to say that I can offer a free download copy for your listeners, and we'll provide a link for them to click and download it. Or alternatively, they can buy it from Amazon for 99 cents or 99 pence. The ebook version also there's a paperback available. So these are the two things that I'd love to offer to your listeners. And my company is called TTC Translate. And again, TTC is Tango Tango Charlie, WeTranslate.com. And anyone searches in Google, they find us. And we'll be on the place to speak with them. It's not about transactional. We are not transactional. We love sharing information. We love supporting businesses. So anybody has any question about international culture, international business, they're welcome to connect with me.
That is awesome. And as everybody knows, we'll have all the links below down in the description. Levant, hey, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. You're a rock star, my friend. And looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Absolutely, David. It's been a total pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Cheers. Wow, that was such an incredible interview with Levant. And because of the fact that I've lived in multiple countries, have worked for some Asian companies, I mean, it's just one of those interviews that really connects to me at a personal level. And I find intriguing because I have some experience that really kind of talks about what his expertise is. I have some firsthand knowledge. And, you know, in this type of world, it's kind of really given me, you know, a chance to be ahead of the curve, I guess we can say. First, though, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it sparked those warm and fuzzies, please do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But if you really want to help us out, because you know Shark Bite Biz is the greatest kept secret in the world of small business, please share this episode out to your friends, your colleagues, you know, your coworkers, your family, whoever, wherever you dwell on the interwebs, whether it is Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Minds, Rumble, whatever it is, go out there, check us out, like, subscribe to the channel, or give us a super thanks. You can give us a super thanks right there on the video. It's the heart with a $sign. You know, any type of donation helps us do the magic now that we're doing. Now let's go back to our rock star guest, Mr. Levant. It's the holiday season for most people, so I'm going to keep this short, okay? You've got to realize that people don't operate or make business decisions the same way as we do in the States. In the good old US, oftentimes we make a decision swiftly. And by swiftly, that still could be a few weeks or even sometimes a few months. But in other cultures or foreign companies, sometimes that decision takes 3 times longer because of the centralization or the hierarchy or the bureaucracy that's kind of built into their business processes because of their business cultures. I mean, Americans especially, I mean, we are more emotional based in our decisions. Like, yes, I want that by now. Okay. A lot of other cultures aren't like that. And that's where an American trying to sell in a place like Mexico, it is hard, you know, because it is a longer sales cycle. You're not going to get those quick sales as often. So, you know, you really got to learn and understand the people, the culture, the country, you know, the business processes of buying of the people that you're trying to market or sell to. So anyways, awesome stuff, Levant. Thank you for coming on to the show and sharing your incredible knowledge. Also, thank you so much for sending me a copy of your book, Good Business in Any Language. If you're working with people out of your home country, please, I highly recommend you grab a copy of this book. Check it out. It's amazing. The link for the book on Amazon will be in the description down below. Again, I took a brief read through this, and, you know, it's got all the main stuff that anybody working at some level of international, you know, some level internationally, you're going to want to know about. Question of the day. How much more post-pandemic are you working with people or companies abroad? Leave a comment down below on YouTube. Love to hear your discussions on that. Do you want to be on the show? If so, shoot an email out to interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, you can join the channel. $3 a month, you can become a baby shark. You all know this by now, but I'll tell you once again. I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz. We'll see you all next episode. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.